Let's get started. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This is our second installment with the lovely Mercedes and Maria on their Peak Nutrition webinar series. I am Tess. Today I'm the publicist at Mountaineers Books. And tonight they are going to talk about learning how to recover faster so you can play longer using your nutrition. Our hosts are the lovely Chef Maria Hines and Mercedes Pollmeier. They will share tips from their new book, Peak Nutrition, on how to recover. And absolutely feel free to ask questions in the Q&A chat box below as their talk goes on, and we will certainly have ample time at the end to answer the questions. And to give you guys a brief intro to our host, Maria Hines. She is the winner of the 2009 James Beard Award for Best Chef Northwest. She was also named one of Food & Wine magazine's 10 Best New Chefs. Her organic Seattle restaurant, Tilt, is one of the nation's top culinary destinations. An avid big wall climber, she holds a level 1 nutrition certification and runs an online nutrition coaching business, mazamanutrition.com. Mercedes Pollmeier, a former professional boulderer, is certified by the National Strength and Conditioning Association as a strength and conditioning specialist. Based in Seattle, she holds a degree in exercise science and an MS in human movement, along with a level 2 nutrition certification. Through her business, Modus Athletica, she uses movement and nutrition training to coach climbers and help them perform their best. So with these two masterminds, I'm going to now pass the reins over to them and let them tell you how to recover faster.
Thanks, Tess. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. Tess, you might need to make me a whatever. There we go. Thank you. Oh no. I'm gonna give away the key details right at the end. Ah. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. This is great. Okay, so we actually have a whole chapter in the book dedicated to this topic. So we are going to go in depth in certain areas, but you can also check out more information in the book for this. Okay, so if you would like to purchase our book, you can actually get a copy from mountaineersbooks.com. Maria is also selling it from her restaurant. You can go to tilttogo.com. REI is also selling it, and same with Amazon. And this is what, like 2.5 years in the making. I think Maria and I basically did that. Yeah, we're really proud of what we've done. All right, Maria, you want to introduce?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. How are you? How you doing today? This weather's beautiful, so we got that going for us. Yeah, I'm Maria. I have a little restaurant in town, Tilt Restaurant, certified organic. Been there for about 14 years now. It's in Wallingford, which is about 4 miles north of the downtown area. And yeah, started a online nutrition coaching business that's been a ton of fun. And I do a little bit of consulting for some restaurants and some corporate consulting. And so enough to kind of keep me out of trouble.
Awesome. Right. So for me, you know, I'm the owner of Modus Athletica. So it's a business I formed a while ago now. But I've been doing one-on-one coaching online and doing courses in the last year. I am a strength and conditioning coach, specifically for climbers, boulderers, actually even more specifically, but I do train athletes of all ranges and activity levels and whatnot. Yeah, I have a master's in human movement, and I also do nutrition coaching. Also based in Seattle, and this is my home gym. I think someone asked in the questions already what gym I'm at. This is actually my home gym. I've got like a really awesome setup. I feel so grateful that I can still train and climb at home.
And Mercedes she's underselling herself. She's an incredible coach. I've gotten a lot of coaching with her, and like even literally a couple weeks after shoulder surgery, she was able to like get my shoulder recovered up to speed. And within 6 months, I was on El Cap climbing. Oh, there I am. There
you are.
Climbing. That was actually after shoulder surgery. And I wanted to put this photo on here because that is me not recovered. That's what not recovered looks like. That's looking a little road after a couple of days of being on the wall.
Yeah, I remember practicing Jumaring with you in the gym right after your shoulder surgery, trying to like get ready for that trip. And I'm like, I have never Jumared before. I have no idea what this feels like. And that was so fun.
It's like vertical ditch digging.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's get into it. Maria, you want to tell us what we're gonna cover?
Yeah, so we wanted to talk about recovery. Again, it's like one of the reasons why Mercedes and I wanted to, write this book. And we were joking around earlier, and I was saying how, Mercedes, please write this book so I understand how to recover and not feel like death warmed over the next day when I get up to go climb again or whatever it is that I'm doing. And, I'll put some recipes along with it. So a lot of this is incredible information that Mercedes has really put together. But we're going to go over, recovering for multi-day events, even one event, or, even just a few hours of hard activity, or even training. So we're going to talk about why it's so damn important. And how stress affects the body, because that's an important part of recovery, how food plays a role as a stressor, and how you can use food to actually increase your inflammation or decrease your inflammation. And for recovery, we're looking to decrease our inflammation, but we'll talk a little bit about both. And then different methods of de-stressing physically, mentally, in your heart, all of those things. If you can reduce the stress, you're going to recover a lot better. And then we'll kind of do a little recap, and then we'll save 15, 20 minutes at the end for questions.
Right. So we'll go into the first slide of like, why is this so important? And I think for athletes and people who are very dedicated to being in the outdoors as often as possible, I think a lot of the time it's very easy to actually overtrain because we think we have to put a lot of time in to get better results. And that's not necessarily true. And so that really what the goal of all of this is to say, there are other things you can do apart from just hammering it in the gym and outside to make your performance better. Performance is training and recovery combined. And so here, on this slide, we're just going over kind of the different aspects and areas of how recovery can actually affect your body and your life in general. And so number one is performance. If you recover just right, you're gonna peak for whatever it is that you're gonna be doing. It can help with mental acuity. I know when Maria and I were putting this slide together, we talked about safety, and she knows a little bit more about this, making some decisions when you're at risk, when you're on these big walls. If you're not recovered and doing the things prior and even during the activity, if you're not taking the right adequate rest periods and eating enough food, that you might actually make the wrong decisions at the wrong times.
Yeah, you could not be paying attention. If you are docking the pig, which is the haul bag when you're wall climbing, and you don't dock it properly, it could rip the anchor out. Or if you are climbing and there's some friable rock and you're in an alpine environment, and you're tired, so you have a little bit of tunnel vision, you could cut your rope. Mom, if you're watching, none of this happens because I recover. But all of those, I think she is actually. Hi, Mom, if you're watching. But all those things are really important, and those decisions that you need to make, and all the rappels you have to make at the end of your day, and the stumbling down the nasty gullies in the dark, all of that requires your brain to be really turned on, and you have to be really tuned in. So we'll talk more about how recovery will help with that.
Yeah, and I think those are things that we don't often think about, like how recovery can affect those decisions. And then obviously like training, rest days are going to be where you're going to get the most out of your training, because if you rest, you allow the body to adapt to the training that you have just done. So what that means is that you're going to have more productive training sessions because you've got more rest days. You're going to be able to be more consistent because you're eating the correct foods and you're resting enough, you're doing all of the things. You know, that'll eventually like hopefully lead you to being a little bit more injury free. I should say this, like if you're an active person and being very consistent and trying to push your limit, you're always going to be at some point like finding pain in your body. So we can't always be injury free, but recovery can help with those situations. And then like we put on here like building muscle and tendon. So that means like as athletes, we really do want to focus on body composition and having more muscle mass in general. That doesn't mean we want to be bodybuilders, but it helps, good recovery helps with our connective tissue. So that's tendon, muscle, all of the rest of the tissue, bone. So that is for sure, like for us as athletes, I think really important, like that training and performance aspect. The other component that I think we don't often think about, because we do kind of like live more in the present, is actually longevity. So, you know, stress accumulates throughout a whole life. And now there's research studies that show that you can actually have trauma from your genetics. So if your parents have had a lot of stress and trauma, that can actually be basically passed on to you. So like we see that stress can accumulate through your whole life. So the goal is to actually be as recovered as possible so that we can have higher quality life or as long as possible. So longevity really should be kind of like at the top of our minds, because that we're going to get older, you know, that's going to happen. So that for me is actually one of the biggest motivators, is to have this like longevity aspect in most of my training and recovery.
Yeah, and you can actually repair your cells through proper recovery, and flush out like old, broken, defunct cells. You can also actually grow brain cells as well with, neuroplasticity. So all of these things can occur if you're, recovering properly. And, to what Mercedes is saying with that longevity piece, like we all are in the present moment. We don't think about our own mortality, but I would say as I get older as an athlete, I definitely feel it more. Like it took a good decade before I got the memo that I wasn't 20 and kept getting injured because I wasn't made of elastic anymore. So this has become, actually more important. So if you're getting ahead of it before, you get too far along the path, you're just gonna last even longer. Your joints are gonna last longer. Like it's gonna be good.
And it's also important to note that all of the things we're about to present are actually habits. So if you can, as a younger athlete, if you can start to develop these really good habits early on, the easier it's going to be as you age. Because like habits actually take a really long time to form, it doesn't take overnight. Unfortunately, when we even like nutrition coaching, we don't see results right away. You see results months after. So that's really, really important to know that you do have to kind of like set your expectations of like, I'm doing all of these things. When am I going to see the results? And sometimes depending on how much stress you have in your body, it might take a little bit longer, but just know, like, trust the process. And there's an experimentation component of it as well. Right, so we're gonna start with stress in the body. We're gonna get to kind of like this first point here that in the next slide, that foods, like allergens, are really one of the biggest components of what causes stress in our body, bad stress. And we'll go over what good and bad stress is in a second. But Maria, did you want to talk a little bit about the 70%?
Yeah, and with kind of going with the allergens, like you can go and get an allergy test and it can say that you're not allergic to these certain things. So it's not only just like if you are, you know, medically diagnosed with a particular food allergy, but food intolerances as well. Like, you know, if your body doesn't do well with something, even though you're not allergic, you know, you can get acne, which is basically infection underneath the skin. If you have a zit, there's an infection that's occurring. So, you know, that's an allergen. If you have any bloating, or I notice if I eat grains, my knuckles and my knees, like the joints, they just get really, tight, and I can definitely feel like the puffiness from it. So all of those things are taking away energy for your body to recover. So if you're eating the things that feel right to you and feels the best for your body, then your body isn't spending all that time and energy on trying to repair itself from whatever you just put into it that is, you know, stressing it out. So that's where a lot of stress can come from. And we'll go into more about like food stresses and all that, but yeah.
And Maria and I are doing a 30-day sugar-free challenge. And the first thing I noticed actually is after my climbing sessions, because this wall right here is 42 degrees or something. So it's like kind of heinous on the finger joints. And I used to get like basically like achy joints, especially in my middle finger after my sessions on this board, but I'm actually not really getting that like to its severity. Like it's very mild. And I think it is the sugar.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. You know, and since we've been doing that challenge too, I've noticed I'm sleeping better. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm not as heavily reliant on the caffeine to kind of like, my body is starting to kind of naturally wake up a little bit better because I'm getting, you know, a little bit more rest. And my acne, my adult onset sugar acne has disappeared. So, you know, that's good. That sign of infection, it's like, okay, that's definitely, you know, but there's still like a little bit of stickiness in the joints. So like, I have a feeling I'm going to have to like cut out refined carbs as well to kind of get to that next level. But yeah, okay, we'll stay on topic though.
Yeah. Okay. So work stress. So we're continuing on with stress in the body. And so this is just something for you to understand as yourself, like how much stress comes from your job or how much stress comes from the rest of your life.
Relationships, you know, any sort of, you know, whatever home stuff you're dealing with. Yeah. Work, you know, the city, like COVID.
Yeah. Like all of that is going to have an effect on your body, and it's just going to accumulate fatigue and potentially like breaking down parts of your body, especially your brain. So this is just something for you to understand and maybe start assessing, like, how much stress do I have and where can I start to reduce that stress in my life? Another area is like physical activity. So that's like the sport you're doing, training, even like walking, flexibility, that sort of thing. So we just put in here eustress versus distress. So these are two different types of stressors. Eustress is actually the good stress. So this is when we're training or like we're physically distressing our body, but it's a good thing. Or good stress as in some parts of like work can be good stress. It's not saying that some work as in work that really makes you productive. I think that's good for us because we come from a very productive like society. Like we really feel like we need to be productive. I don't think that that is really what, like that's not good stress either. It might feel like it's good because we're being very productive. But in general, anything that like spikes our heart rate, increases adrenaline for long periods of time, that's not great. Things that are like, it spikes for a little bit and comes back down. Spikes for a little bit, comes back down, just like in training. That is all like pretty good stress. If you're training every day and then you realize your heart rate, your resting heart rate is not low enough, okay, maybe you're training too much and now this is now a bad stress. So it's more distress. Okay. So those are kind of the two different stressors in our life. And for the most part, human beings in modern society are always in distress because our levels are higher than they should be through the day. Fight or flight, we have like those natural mechanisms in the body, which tends to come up during any kind of stressful moments. This affects our cortisol levels, and anything that affects our cortisol levels will then affect our sleep as well. So any kind of like lack of sleep, we're going to talk about sleep hygiene here in a second, but all of these can accumulate to then really poor sleep. And then if you don't get very good sleep, I would say like that is the number one thing that we really should be getting to recover from everything from the day before.
And I'd say with the cortisol levels, one of the ways that you'll know that your cortisol is off track, or maybe it's like spiking up too high, is if you're wired and tired. So if in the middle of the night you just you wake up, at midnight or at 2 a.m. or whatever, and you feel like wide awake, or 3 a.m, you feel wide awake and you're ready to go. That right there is a sign that your cortisol levels are off. Also, if you're just fatigued all day long and you just can't seem to wake up, that's there's different phases in which you'll start noticing these signs if your cortisol levels are off. And if you go on Amazon, they have a saliva test that you can take to find out, and then it gets sent into a lab to find out where your cortisol levels are at. And it's fairly reasonable price. So if you feel like you're having some of those really fatiguey brain fog in the daytime, and then you're wide awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, sort of thing, and can't go back to sleep, it's worth checking in on that.
Right. So this is kind of where we got the 70% from, was from Brendan Brazier. And if anyone likes to read books, this one is a great one, especially if you're a plant-based eater. He wrote Thrive. It's an awesome book. And he's saying nutritional stress for the average North American is by far the greatest source of uncomplementary stress, accounting for 70% of it. So that's why it's basically kind of the first thing we're talking about. What are you putting in your body, and how does it affect you? So eating certain foods during activity can stress the body more. Maria, did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, especially if it's something that's hard for your body to digest. Now you're in the middle of doing a hard workout or whatever it is that you're doing, and you're trying to digest a giant bagel when you're in motion or whatever. The amount of energy that it takes for your body to actually break down processed or refined foods is quite a bit. It's pretty taxing to your system. So if you're you're out mountain biking or whatever it is that you're doing, you're trail running, or you're doing a long climb or something, if you're eating anything that is just really hard on your body, that is going to take energy away. And what you want to do is you want to feed yourself foods that will bring energy back to you and not deplete you of it. And a lot of proteins can do that too. Proteins can be really hard to digest. So, having, too much beef jerky or too much protein, while you're being active, is really hard. And you do need protein for your body. So, especially while you're moving, but a protein shake, or experiment a little bit and find foods that your body responds to really well. And it's good to do little tests if you're just out for the day doing something, and try foods out then, maybe not wait until you go on your road trip and you've packed all your food, or you're on your next alpine adventure or anything like that, and test it out then. Just have a good idea of what your body is going to interact well with to help reduce your stress. And then Coach has a thing on eliminating foods as FODMAP. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, so just a disclaimer, because we're saying eliminate foods, and we have this beautiful photo of this pastry that Maria put on here, which is like, it's just like makes my mouth water.
It was super good.
It's, yeah.
The Mazzana store.
So really, like, a disclaimer is like, we're not trying to say that there are bad foods. There, often it's like a dosage, and some people really are completely allergic to some foods, and some people have a low tolerance for foods, and some people have a higher tolerance for foods. So, you know, we're really not saying there are certain like bad foods, like sugar is bad. Like I wouldn't, like I used to say that, but I'm like, now it's like not the message that I want people to take from this. It's more, you know, we eat food. We eat food to enjoy life, and you know, it's a cultural thing. We come together, we eat really good food. It makes us feel really good. And there is often a guilt association with some of these things that we eat. And that is also, that's another stress. The second you start thinking about these guilty, negative thoughts, that is now accumulated stress. So anyway, that's relationship with food. I'm just going to put that over there. I just wanted to put that as a disclaimer. So with eliminating foods, if you know that you have a joint stiffness, acne, bloating, bowel issues,
Rashes,
dandruff. Yeah. I mean,
even your breath, if your breath smells different, you know, there could be something going on there as well.
Yeah. So like, maybe it's time to try somewhat of an elimination diet. So the one that I listed here is actually very aggressive. So if this would be for someone who has, you know, pretty bad like bowel issues, lots of fatigue issues, this would be the thing to try. So it's called a FODMAP. It stands for something very long, but the folks in Australia, they developed this. So it's shepherdworks.com.au. So if you want more information on that, they're the ones that created it, and a lot of the information is free. And I know a lot of naturopaths will also use the same protocol, but basically you're eliminating as much food as possible and then slowly introducing new foods to see which foods are actually causing you fatigue, pain, you know, poor bowel movements, that sort of thing. So, you know, like I would say that's more extreme is FODMAP. Otherwise, if you're like, oh, I want to eliminate some foods, start with the basics. So like sugar, processed foods. I would say like those are the kind of like the two biggest ones that you could try and eliminate. There's
dairy can be a big trigger too.
Dairy, eggs. We do have a pretty good list in our book of like common allergens. So, you know, you can always go there and check it out. But this is a great way to figure out what foods that you're kind of like intolerant to.
Great. And then trying to avoid eating 2 or 3 hours before bed is great because your body isn't spending all that time trying to like break that food down, digest it. You know, it's got to decide where it's going to go. Like, okay, this is going to go here. This is going to go there. So if you let your body be in rest mode when you're resting, you're going to be winning in that sense. And then same thing with overeating. If you're overeating, it's just really hard for your body to digest all of that and break it down. And it just creates a little bit more stress on the body. Our last webinar, we'll have the notes for you on how to get a hold of those, but we talk a little bit about like how to slow down your eating in that webinar. So take a look at that and that'll give you some great tips on that. And then foods with minimal nutritional value. This is an important thing, especially when you're on a mission, you're at an event, you're in training mode. You want to make sure, and especially if you're out for a long event, you want to make sure that every single item, you know, every food that you are digesting, that it has nutritional value. It's got to be giving back. So this beautiful pastry, it was lovely and I enjoyed it on my 4-hour drive back to Seattle. And, you know, it was great, but I certainly wouldn't have that if, well, not now. now I wouldn't have this, you know, if I was going out climbing. That would not be what I have for breakfast, because it would cause a sugar crash, and it would, I wouldn't be able to climb as hard that day, and that would make me sad. So, you know, there's a time and place for everything. And when you're working your body hard, or you're in a training cycle, that's a good time to be, you know, pretty hyper focused about the amount of nutrition, and looking at everything being like, is this bringing me nutrition into my body right now, or is it going to take it away? Just having that mindfulness around it. And then alcohol, we all love it so dearly. And there's a time and place for it as well. You know, when you're out working your body hard, like if you want to have a cold beer afterwards, like, I mean, my little rule of thumb is, because I want to have a cold beer afterwards, or if I'm, you know, feeling low carbish, like it might be, you know, like a tequila, or, you know, a dry red wine or something, but like pound a bottle of electrolytes first. Get a glass of electrolytes, pound it, and then you can have your beer. So, you know, we're not saying don't have alcohol, but like, just know that, you know, if you really have to be on and like kind of tuned up, that, you know, maybe skip it for your event.
It's also a different macronutrient. So we have like protein, carb, fat, and alcohol. So it is its own macronutrient. And so that means it actually has a little bit more energy per gram. So that's also something to think about, you know, in terms of like calories and that sort of thing. Right. So Maria's going to kind of take over this, but basically we have amazing recipes in the book. Maria spent hours and hours putting these recipes together. One, to make them freaking delicious, because these are foods that we're going outside, and you know, when you're outside, like the last thing you really want is a freaking Cliff Bar. Like, wouldn't it be better to have something just amazing to put in your mouth and enjoy while you're out in the wilderness? So these are some recipes that Maria came up with.
Yeah, so these are the recipes that are definitely geared towards reducing the inflammation in your body. Ginger is really good for it. Also cayenne, lemon, cayenne, like any of those spices. If you like heavily spice your food with, you know, peppers and whatnot, that's really good for decreasing inflammation. Along with ginger, put as much ginger, like fresh grated ginger, in your food as possible. But this is an actual recipe for it. And then salmon is just full of omega fatty acids, so that's a really good inflammation reducer. Broccoli sprouts, not only is it super good for inflammation, but it's so nutritionally dense. It has a ton of micronutrients in there. And when we're talking about nutrients, this question kind of came up. Micronutrients is what you're looking at as far as like that nutritional value. So your macronutrients is going to be your three groups. It's going to be your fat and your carbs and your protein. And then your micronutrients is going to be like all of the, like the chlorophyll, all the green things, all your vitamins and minerals. So that's what you want to, you want to focus on both, but for that nutritional value, that's what we're talking at, the micronutrients. And then there's a curry chicken salad in there. Turmeric is really good for you. So anytime you can put turmeric in something, like the curry and the chicken salad has turmeric, it's really good for inflammation. And then we put a couple of supplements on the bottom here. There's a bunch of other ones, but like the omega-3s is really good. Curcumin is what is in turmeric that helps decrease your inflammation. So you can buy turmeric pills, but you can also get curcumin, which is just a really intensified amount of the ingredient that it helps decrease the inflammation that you would find if you just had fresh turmeric. Though, please keep in mind that a lot of these items, the bioavailability when you have food that isn't processed and it's in its whole form is so much higher. So if you have ginger and you have fresh ginger, that's going to be way better than having like a ginger pill or whatever. Same with like the curcumin, like you're going to have a lot better bioavailability if you have fresh grated turmeric or, turmeric into your food. The CBD as well, there's studies for sure that show that it decreases inflammation. I would recommend, if you are getting CBD, to make sure that it has a little bit of THC in there. So I personally, if I'm getting my CBD, I will get it at a dispensary because it will have some THC in there, because the way the cannabinoids work, they work very synergistically. So you actually need the CBD and the THC to work together to get, to get the best value out of it. If it just has CBD, sure, it's going to be fine. It's, it'll be great. But if you have the synergistic quality of all those cannabinoids working together, and the THC and the CBD and the CBN, all of that, you're going to get a much better result. And then I'm going to kind of flip back up to the fasting. We had a question about that. That will help. It can really help reduce your inflammation, and especially if you are doing intermittent fasting. And maybe Mercedes, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so fasting, when we talk about fasting, it's at least 12 hours. So that would be considered fasting, is like 12 hours. And then if you get more than that, great. Fasting is also its own conversation. But when you fast, your cells actually detoxify themselves. So like basically they're regenerating, they're getting rid of the bad stuff, and so like the good stuff comes in. There's also like, some bad cells will actually break down, and then new cells will regenerate. So fasting is, I think, a natural thing for humans to be doing. The time, and especially for women, is going to be different for men. But because it's kind of like a natural thing, it's something that we've had through evolution, I think this is kind of like how our body naturally eliminates these toxins in our body and inflammation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The other thing with the fasting is it can be good to reduce your inflammation, but you also want to be a little bit careful about it, because I'm a big intermittent faster. My body does great on it. Like I sleep better. My brain functions better. If I do intermittent fasting, usually like 14 hours is great. But if you are doing a fasted workout, that's something you want to be careful of. If you are, if you're already tired, you already have like a really stressful job, if you're maybe not eating all the right foods that you should be eating, and then you're in a training cycle and you're working your body really hard. So now you're trigger stacking all of these stressors. So then fasting becomes another thing that is trigger stacking you, and it can actually, increase your inflammation. So you just want to make sure that you have like your checks and balances.
Okay, we have like 5 minutes.
Oh man, all right, it's go time.
All right, we'll make this real kind of quick. Okay, sleep hygiene. So this is basically your rituals around sleeping. Maria, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So having like a good sleep ritual, something that starts to calm your system down before you go to bed is going to help move you into deep sleep. So certain things that I'll do is I'll make sure that I don't have any screen time before I go to bed. I have a gratitude journal, so I'll fill that out at the end of the night. I'll not drink too much water before I go to bed, so I'm not like getting up in the middle of the night and having to go pee, because that can also be a sleep disturbance. I'll put all my phone, my gadgets, I'll actually put them, on do not disturb and put them away so they're not in my sight. I can't hear them or anything like that. Reading a book can be really good. Doing yoga, before you go to bed, or being in the sauna before you go to bed, like all of these things, you really are just looking to calm your system down and really wind it down. So you're already kind of in a rested state. Like have natural light in your room, try and lower, no blue lights in the room. And you really want to just like turn the lights down as low as you can before you're starting to go to sleep. Like all of these things, meditation will really help. So think about like all of those different tactics you can use to improve your sleep hygiene. And then anti-inflammatory foods, eat anti-inflammatory foods. That's another way to distress. And then hydration and electrolytes. That's another, really important thing. Like, again, like your joints can get really sticky and like things just stop gliding smoothly within your body. The fascial layers, like, your lymph nodes and all of that sort of stuff. They need that hydration. The joints, they need that hydration so everything can move and glide properly and send the nutrients through your body to where it needs to go. So you want to like keep those pathways open. Yoga and flexibility, we talked about that. Those are great. Meditation, my friend Elizabeth turned me on to the Calm app. It's really great. The Headspace app is really wonderful as well. Breath work, any sort of breath work. Getting body work done, getting acupuncture, massage, or self-massage, any of that sort of stuff that you can do for yourself. Like get on that foam roller. That's a great, just work your entire spine on the foam roller, and that'll really help work out your spine, and it'll really help send all of that fluid throughout your entire body. And again, just like sending nutrients through all of your appendages. And then cold showers are great, and then saunas as well. And that's my puppy Hank off to the left. Hi, Hank. All right.
So I'll just add really quick, the whole reason why, basically sleep hygiene, yoga and flexibility, meditation, all of that stuff is actually to promote parasympathetic nervous system tone. So we operate on two nervous systems in the body. So we have our sympathetic and parasympathetic. And so when we're stressed, sympathetic nervous tone goes up. Okay, so this is more our fight or flight kicking in. And so that's when we're gonna exert more adrenaline into our bloodstream. That increases our cortisol. So as often as possible, we wanna turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest system. And all of these, the breath work, the flexibility, all of this stuff, the very intentional work brings up the parasympathetic nervous system and brings down the sympathetic. So we want to be operating in parasympathetic as often as possible, even during our training sessions. So that means start your training sessions with some nice deep nasal breaths into the belly, get as calm as you can before you start training, and try to maintain this level of calm through your training. And that'll just help you recover a lot faster during sessions as well. So that's kind of the key takeaway from that. Oh, pretty good.
Hey.
Do we even need to go through this?
Really fast. Recovery. Remember, recover. Just make it your plan. Put it in your training schedule, not just lift weights, run, cycle, climb, put recover on there, put yoga, put stretch, put all those things on there. Sorry. Yeah. And remember, if you're a person who likes to train a lot, try to alternate your intensity levels while you're training. You have a heavy day and a very light day. You have some flexibility in between. Don't have big days back to back. I know so many people, a lot of even my clients want to go out and climb back-to-back days and expect to send really hard every day. But really, you do have to factor in, if I'm going to try really hard, I have a heavy day, the next day needs to be super light so that hopefully the next day I can have a moderate to heavy day again. So, that's definitely one key aspect in your training that you really need to focus on. Okay. And if you're just learning about that and you're trying to figure out when your body should rest and when you can push it a little bit, because it took me a while to figure that out. I just kind of went into training mode, and it's it didn't matter if I was tired or really overstressed or whatever. It was just nah, it's Wednesday and this is the day that I'm supposed to do my arc training, at the climbing gym or whatever. But if you because I couldn't figure that out on my own, and I wasn't listening to my body because I was just driving it hard with everything that I was doing, I got this heart rate variability app. So it's HRV. You can just like look up any like free like HRV apps, and you can actually wake up in the morning, take your pulse, and it will ask you, you know, a bunch of questions about where you're at. So it makes you participate and be mindful and check in with yourself, as well as you can kind of get these stats of like where your heart rate is and stuff like that. So that way you kind of have an indicator that like, yeah, I gotta just slow it down. I can still work out today, but I'm going to do a different workout today. So it's a nice tool to have for that. Focusing on whole nutritious foods, hydration, decrease inflammation when possible, recovery, building it in your program, sleep. I mean, if nothing else, you know, if y'all like, if you eat like shit and you like pound some beers, like at least get good sleep. Like out of all of this, like sleep is the most important thing for you to be able to do. I mean, not pounding beers and like eating properly will like help you with your sleep, but at the same time, like, you know, we just really want to encourage that for your recovery.
Well, there are a ton of studies showing that even if you get 8 to 10 hours a night, you will naturally be like healthier if you get at least 8 hours. So what Maria's saying is true.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. Oh
yeah, we can hear you. Yeah. And this is a perfect segue.
Okay.
We have so many great questions coming in. Are you guys ready to field them?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So a few people have been asking recommendations for pre-workout snacks, especially when your workout might be early in the morning and you're just like not feeling hungry, but you know that you need that fuel. Do you guys have any recs on that?
We have a bunch of stuff in the book. That's a great question, because I wrestle with that same thing, that especially those like alpine starts, like that's early to be working your body hard, and you have to like, you know, get food in there. So I mean, try and have something that's easily digestible. I would say smoothies, you know, those are pretty easy to digest. If your body does well with rice, like having some white rice. Now, white rice doesn't have high nutritional value, but your body can digest it pretty quickly. So if you have rice with some scrambled eggs, that might be a way to do it. But I noticed for me that it's got to be, I can have like yogurt and berries, or I can have, you know, a protein shake or something like that. So, and I'll also break down the foods that I have. Like if I'm going to go put in a day at Washington Pass, like get up early in the morning and I'll have my smoothie while I'm like packing up, getting ready to go. And then while I'm in the car, I'll try and snack on something, and then hike in. And when I'm at the base and putting on my harness and like racking up and all that sort of stuff, I'm eating then as well. So if you have these smaller, easily digestible things, you're getting the calories that you need in, but you're not having to like consume them all at once. So that's something, a tactic that you might want to try and use.
Oh, that's great.
I think also like being careful to not overeat. So like if you're not feeling hungry and you have like, you made yourself some oatmeal or whatever, don't feel pressure to eat the whole thing. Like you can always just split it up, eat half, because if you eat more than your body is ready for, you're going to have some like pooping issues later on, you know, so only eat as much as like it really feels good too.
And you don't always have to eat. Like you can do a fasted workout. It depends on like, it looks like here, it looks like, my glasses on. I keep trying not to wear my glasses. But yeah, like, okay, so you're a rower. So, you know, it depends on how hard of a row you're going to have that day, or how many hours you're going to be moving your body. Like for me, if I go for like a 3 or 5 mile run, even I can run 5-6 miles fasted in the morning and then just eat something when I get home. If I'm going to do something very physical where it's going to be using a lot of muscle, where it's not as endurance-y, where it's more anaerobic instead of aerobic, then my muscles need the glycogen and I'll bonk without it. But if I'm doing a light endurance thing or a not like super intense endurance thing, like I'll do a fasted workout and I feel great. So you know that is an option. They always used to say you gotta eat before you like work out, but you don't. You just listen to your body.
Yeah, that's great. And then just so, do you guys have any recommendations? People are asking about electrolytes post-workout, like a water additive or something else.
Oh, Ultima is my favorite electrolyte. That is, I get it from Amazon. They have a bunch of different flavors. There's no sugar in it. There's 0 calories. So if you are intermittent fasting, the minute you have a calorie, 1 calorie, that your body starts to metabolize. And the minute that it starts to metabolize, you're losing those effects of like autophagy and your cells, rebuilding and all of that sort of stuff. So, but Noon is also great. Noon is very low calorie, but Noon's great because it's in a tab form. So if you're exercising, it's nice to just huck a tab in your water bottle and go. Like if I'm like wall climbing or I'm in an alpine environment, like I actually prefer the Noon tablets. If not, the Ultima, I really, really like it. It actually has higher levels. Like I actually went through and checked all the, the amount of like salt in there, potassium, and, all of the electrolytes to see who had the most in there. And Ultima definitely was the one.
Oh, great.
I use
it's great.
I use Hammer Nutrition. That one I don't think has any calories because they use stevia and monk fruit, I think, in theirs. And yeah, I like that over Noon.
Nice. Is it powder form?
It's a tab.
Okay. And Scratch Labs is good too. I gotta throw some props their way. Like they put real nice like little chunks of fruit and stuff in there. Theirs is a little bit more of a mixture. So there is some sugar in there, but I think for there's a lot of athletes that need that nice steady stream of sugar, not a bunch, but they need that steady stream of sugar if they're in constant movement, just for the glycogen in the muscles and stuff like that.
We've had a few people asking what to do on like multi-day hikes or treks or activities such as backpacking, and you don't really have time to build in a rest day, what you recommend for a mini recovery, and also how to manage nutrition when you are on these longer activities when you might be experiencing nausea.
Yeah, I think so this is knowing yourself and how long you can actually hike for in a day. So I think that's really important to understand for yourself is like, how much can I actually push myself over multiple days? And I think a lot of the time, like we have really big days in the beginning and then we'll have a couple shorter days and then another couple big days. So like, if you have some time to figure out like knowing yourself, like how much you can push in over a 1 to 2 day period, I think it's better to have a big day, a short day, a big day, a short day, so that you build the recovery in. And on those shorter days, you can practice things like the meditation, the breathing, and doing flexibility, especially when you're carrying packs. Like it's pretty easy because you don't need any equipment to do flexibility work. And that naturally helps to recover your body because of the breathing aspect and flexibility. So in terms of like those multiple days, it is down to the individual and how much you can tolerate, and don't push yourself more than you actually can, because that will then lead to nausea. And especially if you're at altitude, altitude plays such a huge role in how your fitness is gonna, I guess, like how well you perform at altitude. So, like I think that does come down to the individual and how often you're training as well.
And then as far as your eating, like if you're nauseous and but that you need to eat and like, that the food is a part of your recovery, like when you're moving and you're you're doing your, you know, your long hike, and you're in the backcountry, and, you know, you're like climbing some elevation and that sort of stuff. Like, you should eat whenever you can. Like, don't wait till you're hungry to eat. And then, because sometimes if you wait till you're hungry you'll eat, you have lost so much recovery. It's what coach says, where you just will get nauseous because you're just like ghosted. You've like ghosted you've depleted your energy. And then you're just like, oh my God, I can't even think about eating right now. So you want to trickle food in. Like, if I'm on a multi-pitch, like, I'll eat at every belay. Like, I'll eat at the base of the route. I'll eat at every belay. Like, even if I'm not hungry, and this is if I'm doing multiple days. If I do one multi-pitch, like just one day, you know, like, I'm not quite as worried about it. But so you want to eat when you're not hungry. You want to eat little bits of it. When you're hot and you're tired and you're feeling nauseous and you don't feel like eating, that's when it's really important that you bring foods that are really delicious. Like, you can't bring food that you're not super psyched on. So you need to bring like the bar recipes that we have in the book. Every single bar recipe in there, I have taken them with me. I've taken wall climbing. I've taken it backpacking. I've taken it, you know, like multi-pitch climbing, like, and they're great. Like, they're nice and savory, and having that variety. So it's, you're not eating the same bar every time. That's really important as well, because that's what is going to create enough interest to trick your body into wanting to eat, even when you're like totally exhausted and you're feeling kind of nauseous. But things that are easily digestible is another thing you want to have when you're nauseous. You know, you want to just go for those sorts of items that will break down very quickly.
And hydration. If you're nauseous, you know, hydrate and eat as often as you can. And we actually have, like, in our book, we do have like a breakdown, like, table of like the type of activity that you do and how often you should be fueling. Again, these are all guidelines. It doesn't mean this is what you have to do. Experimentation is going to be kind of like at the top of the list. Like, you're going to have to see what's going to work best for you.
Yeah, I just dropped a link into the chat where you can purchase the book. It's actually, we have a discount on our website. So if you wanted to purchase through us or your independent bookstore or one of the places that Maria and Mercedes listed,